The distress call, the great chamber of the Sheriff High Council, shook with the sound of alarms. Lights flashed red, sirens screamed, and the air was filled with the voices of panicked officers. On the main holoscreen, a map of their border. Space glowed with dozens of red enemy markers, each one moving fast toward the heart of their worlds. The Vor Dominion had broken through every defense line. Their fleets had been torn apart. Their colonies were falling one after another. The enemy was not just winning. They were destroying everything in their path. High Chancellor Velrin slammed his fist against the table, his voice cracking. They are coming for our core worlds. If they take them, the Sheriff will be no more. Counselors shouted over each other, some demanding surrender, others begging for reinforcements that did not exist. It was Admiral Jorvak who said the words. No one wanted to hear. There is only one signal left we can send. The room went silent. Everyone knew what he meant. It was the ancient code, a deep space distress call designed to reach beyond known territory. It had not been used for centuries. Legions said it could reach the Deathworlders, a people, from a cursed world called Earth, a place the galaxy feared, a place the Sheriff swore they would never contact. Velrin's eyes narrowed. You know the stories. They are not all eyes. They are predators. Jorvak's voice was calm but cold. Predators, yes, but predators who hate the Vor even more than we do. He turned toward the technicians. Prepare. The signal. Technicians hesitated, fear in their eyes. One spoke softly. One sent. We cannot call it back, and if they answer. His voice trailed off. Jorvak looked around the council chamber. We have two choices. Die now under the Vor, or die later at the hands of Deathworlders. But maybe, just maybe, we live if they fight for us. The Chancellor closed his eyes, the weight of extinction heavy on his shoulders. Send it, he whispered. The great transmission towers of the Sheriff lit up. A pulse of blue energy shot into the void, carrying their plea for help across the stars. Every officer in the command center stood frozen, staring at the comms display. They waited and waited. Minutes passed. In hours, some began to believe. There would be no answer. Maybe the Deathworlders were a myth. Maybe they were gone. Maybe the stories were just to scare children. Then the speakers crackled. A voice came through, not the musical tones of the Sheriff language, not the sharp clicks of Vor speech, but something rough, deep and human. Message received, the voice said. We're coming. A chill ran through every person in the room. The voice had no warmth, no comfort, only certainty. The comm line went dead, leaving the words echoing in their minds. Who was that? Whispered one young officer. Jorvak answered without looking away from the screen. That was a Deathworlder. Hours later, deep in the void beyond charted space, sensors picked up a ripple. Something massive was moving toward them. No transponder. Codes, no beacon lights, no diplomatic hails. Then the blackness of space seemed to open. 20 ships emerged, silent and dark, their hulls covered in scars and strange markings. At the front was a single enormous warship, bigger than any the Sheriff had ever seen. Its forward armor was painted with a crude but terrifying image. A clenched human fist. Gasps filled the command chamber. One counselor whispered, By the stars, they're real. A human flagship did not slow. It broadcast only a short, cold message. Provide enemy coordinates, we will handle the rest. Velrin tried to send a diplomatic greeting, but the humans did not answer. Instead, their fleet began scanning the system, their weapons already warming up. The Sheriff realized in that moment they had not called for saviors. They had called for something far more dangerous. And far away, in the shadows of the Vor Dominion's forward base, warning. Alarms began to sound. The Deathworlders had arrived. Asterisk, the Deathworlders arrived. The Sheriff fleets formed up in a ceremonial line. It was tradition when welcoming foreign allies. But the Deathworlders did not slow to match their formation. They moved through space like predators, each ship keeping perfect silent distance. No flashing lights, no banners, no bright metal hulls, only dark armor that drank in the starlight. The flagship slowed only when it reached the center of the system. It hung there like a shadow blocking the stars. From its surface, tiny objects launched and began to orbit the ship. The Sherieth commanders realized with unease those were drones. Hundreds of them, scanning every ship, every weapon, every movement. On the main screen of the Sherieth command center, the image of the human admiral appeared. His face was pale, his eyes sharp, his voice low and steady. Transmit VOR positions. Do not interfere. There was no greeting, no pledge of alliance, no polite exchange, just orders. The Sherieth counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Valrin cleared his throat. Admiral, we are grateful you answered our... The human cut him off. We did not answer for you. We answered for the VOR. The words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew what it meant. This was not a rescue mission. This was a hunt on the outer edge of the system. VOR patrol ships had begun moving in. They were scanning for the human fleet, but the Deathworlders did not wait to be found. The flagship's railguns rotated, locking on targets. Their barrels glowed faintly. One by one, they fired. The sound was a deep, bone-shaking thud through the comms feed. In seconds, 3 VOR destroyers vanished in bursts of fire and metal. The Sherieth officers stared in. Silence. These humans did not waste shots, did not hesitate. They fired, killed, and moved to the next target without a single word. Jorvik leaned forward in his seat, whispering to himself. So the old stories were true. Valrin finally found his voice. Admiral, the VOR still hold a station near the moons of Solvik. It has prisoners our people. The human looked at him for a long moment, then, with the faintest nod, said only, Coordinates. Valrin hesitated. You? You will free them? The human's gaze was unblinking. We will do what must be done. As the human fleet shifted course toward the moon station, Sherieth scouts sent live feeds. The VOR guards were panicking, trying to evacuate. The Deathworlders accelerated. Without formation, each ship moving like a predator closing in. Valrin's stomach twisted. He could not tell if the humans were going to save the captives or destroy the station with them inside. The comms officer called out. Deathworld fleet within firing range of the VOR station. Everyone in the chamber leaned forward. The next few minutes would decide whether the Sherieth had just brought salvation or unleashed something far worse. Asterisk. First strike. The VOR station loomed in the darkness. Its metal hull was jagged with weapons and docking arms. Around it, a defensive ring of gunships floated like guard dogs. Inside, hundreds of Sherieth prisoners were locked in cold cells, unaware that something deadly was coming for them. The human fleet did not open with words. They opened with fire. Railgun slugs tore through the nearest gunships in flashes of molten light. Missiles streaked across the void, weaving through the yaw. Debris like hunting animals. Each impact bloomed into explosions that lit the shadows for only a heartbeat before darkness swallowed them again. From the bridge of the Sherieth command ship, Valrin watched in disbelief. The humans didn't fight like any navy he knew. They didn't move in lines. They didn't wait for orders. Each ship hunted on its own, reacting like a living thing. It was war without hesitation. The VOR responded with a desperate barrage. Dozens of plasma bolts tore toward the human flagship, but the humans were already moving. Thrusters flared, and the giant warship slid sideways, letting the blasts pass harmlessly into empty space. Then, with almost casual precision, it fired again, this time shattering the VOR's main communications tower in a single strike. Within seconds, the defensive ring was gone. The human fleet closed on the station itself. Instead of destroying it, the flagship stopped. Small dropships launched from its belly. They shot forward, weaving between wreckage until they slammed against the station's hull. The Sherieth counselors leaned in, confused. Jorvek's voice was low. "They're boarding." On the Vor station, alarms wailed, doors sealed, turrets activated. Soldiers scrambled into firing positions, but the Deathworlders came like a storm. Explosive charges blew open airlocks. Humans in black armor poured inside, moving fast, firing without pause. They didn't advance in cautious lines. They surged forward like wolves tearing into prey. Cameras from Vor security feeds showed the chaos. One human dropped an enemy with a single shot, then pulled a Sherieth prisoner to their feet, shoving them toward an exit without even breaking stride. Another human tackled a Vor soldier through a bulkhead door, disappearing from view, only for both to reappear seconds later, one alive, one dead. Velrin felt something strange in his chest. Fear, yes, but also relief. The humans weren't here to slaughter the captives. They were here to take them back. Within 13 minutes, the Vor resistance collapsed. The station's lights flickered and died. When they came back, the Deathworlders were gone. In their place were open cell doors and Sherieth civilians being rushed into dropships. The human admiral's voice came through the comm. "Prisoners secured. The Vez base is yours to burn." Velrin blinked. "You? You risked lives to save ours." The admiral's answer was quiet but firm. "If we fight without saving the helpless, then we are no better than the monsters we kill." Jorvek's eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps you are simply monsters who choose your prey." The admiral didn't respond. The human fleet was already turning, and far on the edge of the system, Vor reinforcements were arriving. Bigger ships, more guns. The humans didn't retreat. They accelerated toward the new threat. The real battle, it seemed, was only about to begin. The Deathworld code, the Vor reinforcements broke into the system like a swarm of predators. 30 warships, heavy cruisers, battleships, and a flagship twice the size of the Sherieth's largest vessel. Their engines burned red, their weapons already locked on. The Sherieth commanders braced for retreat, but the Deathworlders did not move back. Instead, the human admiral spoke calmly over the comm. "All Sherieth ships, hold your position. If you move forward, you will die. If you stay, you may live." It wasn't a request. It was a command. Velrin wanted to argue, but something in the human's voice made him stop. The humans had no reason to protect them, yet they were. Or maybe they just didn't want anyone else interfering with their hunt. The human fleet split into 3 groups. One disappeared into the shadow of a nearby asteroid field. Another moved low, skimming the edge of a gas giant's rings. The last stayed visible. Drawing the Vor's fire, the enemy took the bait, plasma. Bolts and missile volleys tore toward the exposed human ships. Shields flared, armor cracked, but the Deathworlders didn't break formation. They were waiting for something. Then it happened. The asteroid field came alive. Hundreds of human mines ignited in silent bursts, sending out clouds of shrapnel at near light speed. Vor cruisers lost engines. Battleships spun out of control. Before they could regroup, a second human group burst from the gas giant's rings. Their railguns fired in perfect rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4 enemy ships gone in seconds. On the Sherieth bridge, officers watched in stunned silence. It wasn't war, it was extermination. The humans fought not to push the Vor back, but to erase them from existence. The Vor flagship tried to retreat, but the human admiral's voice came through the enemy channels. "No survivors," the Sherieth gasped. Velrin opened his comm in shock. "You will not even offer surrender?" The admiral's reply was like ice. "We do not make peace with those who hunt the weak. This is the Deathworld code. No mercy for predators." The battle ended in less than 40 minutes. Every Vor ship reduced to drifting wrecks. The void was silent except for the slow hum of the human engines. As the Deathworld fleet turned away, Velrin asked the question that had been clawing at him since they arrived. Why come at all? You don't fight for us. You don't fight for territory. So why? The Admiral paused before answering. Because we were predators once too. Someone stopped us, now we stop others. And with that, the human fleet vanished into the dark, leaving only the wreckage of their enemies, and a galaxy full of rumors that the Deathworlders had returned. The enemy's mistake. The Sheriff thought it was over. The Vor fleet was gone, their warships nothing but twisted wrecks. The humans had turned away, engines burning toward deep space. But predators do not vanish so easily. 3 days later, 4 scouts reappeared, small, fast ships, slipping through asteroid belts and hiding in debris fields. At first, the Sheriff believed they were just scavengers. Then the truth came: a massive war fleet had been hiding beyond the system. They had been watching, waiting for the humans to leave. Velren's council screamed for evacuation. But the humans had not truly gone. They had been hiding too. From the darkness between stars, 20 more Deathworlder ships emerged. These were not the same battered giants from before. They were sleeker, sharper, their hulls bristling with strange black structures that shimmered faintly in the starlight. The Vor moved in quickly, thinking they had caught the Sheriff undefended. Their flagship broadcast a single message: Deathworlders, leave the prey, and you may live. The human admiral's voice came back almost instantly. You have made 2 mistakes. First, thinking we would leave before the hunt is over. Second, the human's tone dropped, colder than the void. Thinking we've shown you everything we have. At his signal, the strange black structures on the human ships unfolded like insect wings. They were not weapons as the Sheriff understood them. They were launch racks, and from each rack, hundreds of small, dart-like projectiles erupted. They did not streak toward the Vor in straight lines. They scattered, vanishing from sight. Then, one by one, 4 ships began exploding from the inside. Velren stared in shock. How? How are they doing that? Jorvak's eyes were fixed on the carnage. They seeded them earlier, during the first battle. The Vor had been carrying their own destruction all this time. The Vor tried to flee, but it was too late. The darts were inside their hulls, detonating reactors, crippling engines, rupturing weapon bays. It was not just destruction, it was humiliation. The Vor had been dead the moment they entered the system. The human admiral gave only one order: no survivors. The battle was over in minutes. The Sheriff fleets hadn't fired a single shot, but the silence afterward felt heavier than the fighting. Velren finally spoke, his voice uneasy. You could have ended this days ago. The Admiral's reply was soft, almost thoughtful. Yes, but then they would not have learned the lesson. Velren hesitated. And what lesson is that? The human's eyes were like stone. That the Deathworlders do not forget. And we do not forgive. Asterisk. The black sky, the Vor, were not finished. Even after losing 2 fleets, their war machine roared back to life. This time, they sent everything. Hundreds of ships, carriers, dreadnoughts, even their experimental supercruisers. It was a swarm, so vast that the starlight itself seemed to dim. From the edge of Sheriff space, the human fleet watched in silence. No rally speeches, no fear, only quiet preparations. The Admiral stood on his bridge, eyes locked on the approaching armada. Open the vault, he said. The crew moved without hesitation. Massive sealed compartments on the human warships slid open. From them emerged vast black spheres, each one the size of a small moon. They were covered in shifting panels that caught the faint light and swallowed it whole. Velren's voice cracked over the comm. What are those? The Admiral answered without turning. The reason the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. The Vor fleet charged forward. Weapons lit the void in streaks of burning color. The human spheres began to unfold. From their dark surfaces, swarms of Physio microships poured out, thousands, maybe tens of thousands. They moved like a living storm, weaving through enemy fire, cutting deep into the Vor lines. Everywhere the swarm touched, ships died, engines went dark, reactors went critical. Bridges were torn apart by silent, unseen strikes. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Sheriath fleet could only watch as the sky turned black with human war machines. The stars vanished behind a curtain of death. Velrin's come-officer whispered, "It's like the night itself is killing them." In less than an hour, the Vor armada was broken. Wreckage drifted through space, glowing faintly in the reflected light of burning reactors. No Vor ships remained intact. The black swarm returned to the spheres, which folded closed as if nothing had happened. The human admiral finally spoke. "It is done." But there was no triumph in his voice, only the tone of a predator that had finished its work. Jorvik dared to ask, "Why go so far?" The admiral turned toward him through the cum. "Because fear fades, legends do not." As the human fleet pulled away, whispers began to spread across every surviving ship. The black sky had returned. The Deathworlders had fought once more. And the galaxy would not forget. Asterisk, the legend spreads, the battle was over. The black sky was gone. Only drifting wreckage remained where the Vor armada once stood. In the silence that followed, the Sheriath ships floated like ghosts, unsure if they had survived or simply been spared. Velrin tried to contact the human admiral. At first there was no reply. Then finally, a voice came not from the admiral, but from a young human officer. Transmission terminated. Fleet already departing. Velrin stared at the cum screen. "They don't even wait for thanks," he muttered. Jorvik shook his head. "They don't fight for gratitude. They fight for their own reasons." The Deathworld fleet vanished into the deep dark. No jump flash, no hyperspace trails. One moment they were there, the next they were simply gone. It was as if the void itself had swallowed them. In the days that followed, the story spread faster than light, on merchant routes, in soldier camps, in the smoky back rooms of neutral worlds. The whispers were always the same. The Deathworlders had returned. The black sky had fallen again, and wherever their shadow reached, no enemy survived. Some told the story as a warning, others as a prayer. In the Vor Dominion, it was forbidden to even speak their name. On Sheriath worlds, children drew pictures of the clenched human fist on school walls. To some, it was a symbol of hope. To others, a reminder that hope often comes wrapped in fear. Far away, in an uncharted sector, the human admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship. A faint light blinked on the cum panel. Another distress call. Another voice begging for help. The admiral listened in silence and gave the same order he had given 100 times before. Plot a course. The fleet turned toward the stars. Engines ignited, and somewhere, light years away, another people had no idea that the last fleet they would ever want was already on its way. Asterisk.